So far we understood what is the objective of information security and security function. We also gain like a holistic understanding about how IT applications or how systems looks like and what are the various components of a single application and how to look to all of these components from security perspective. We evaluate each possible component against the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, what could be the factors that could affect these three aspects? Or, in other words, what are the threats that could affect our IT system? We have a lot of types of threats. These threats could be related to hardware or software failure, could be related to human error. It could not be an intentional error, but it could be related to human error in unintended way. We have also threats that could be caused by spam, viruses, and malicious attacks, which we will describe in detail. We could have threats on IT that could be related to natural disasters. If we have floods, volcanoes, earthquakes, all of this could impact IT infrastructure and in reality could impact the how business can work in case of disaster. For example, most of emergency services, most of patient records are currently now stored on a system. So in case hospital cannot reach this system, which include all data or all medical reports or past data about a particular patient, we could be in an issue or in a problem. So we need to consider the availability of system in case of disaster as well. Threats on IT could be related to insider threat, and the insider threat means someone who could be an employee or a contractor for a specific company, but he has a malicious intention in order to cause harm to this company because of revenge, because of gaining money, and so on. So, insider threat is one of the possible threats on IT infrastructure. Physical attacks, which target vulnerabilities or flaws in the physical perimeter or the perimeter security of a particular building, existence of a vulnerability on system, on application, on the building physical layer could be also a threat to IT. Unaware users, or in other words, users that does not express a mature security awareness, which means someone who will wrote his own password and will leave it as a sticky note on his desktop. Such users could result in leaking a system password. This system could be a critical or a sensitive system. So if I have an unaware or uneducated user, this user can unintentionally leak data. And in this case, this could cause harm in our IT system. So the threats on IT is not only spam or viruses, but put in your head that all of this could be factors for causing threat and impact on IT system. So when we look to the key source of threats, we usually hear the term hackers. And hackers are very professional and skilled people. He or she can always find a way and a solution if he cannot access for a particular system. And from language perspective, hackers refer to someone who is smart, who is skilled. And after then, this term was tied or linked with people who have a competency and great knowledge in IT and in how to gain access to IT systems. In reality and in IT, we have three types of hackers. The first one is the white hat, and white hat is also known as ethical hacker. And the ethical hacker is someone who understands hacking techniques and he uses this knowledge to help organizations to secure their own systems. So, assuming that I am an organization and I have a new application such as this one, and this application will be published online. Before this application going to be released to production, the company could contract with one of the white hacker people. And this one will come and do a kind of a security assessment for this application. So he will assess the front end, he will assess the back end, he will assess the database, he will check for possible vulnerabilities or possible entry points to this system. And then he will try to gain access. But of course, this activity will be authorized from the management because the goal at the end of the white hacker is to find the weak points, express or prove that this weak point can be used, and then inform the organization so their IT security team and their developing team can take action to close these issues. So this is what do we mean by the white hat hacker. White hat hacker is also known as the ethical hacker. The second type of hackers is the black hat, and the black hat is completely anonymous hacker. He cannot say that I am a black hat hacker. We usually in LinkedIn we can find a lot of people that are categorizing themselves as a white hat, and they provide their service and provide announcement for their capabilities so organizations can reach them and make benefit from their skills. But black hat are people that are work in the dark. They aim to uh, initiate real attacks on organization to cause harm. They distribute malware, ransomware in order to make benefits. And of course, they are illegal. Gray hat is someone between mix of this situation. If he found a vulnerability, for instance, he can choose either to report this vulnerability to the organization and receive reward for notification, or he can use this vulnerability and receive double reward by causing harm to this organization. So gray hat will usually have a mix between white hat and black hat, and of course they are also illegal because they will notify about the vulnerability only if they know that they will gain more by notifying organization about this vulnerability. But if they know that by notifying organization about a particular vulnerability, they will not earn a lot of money, they may look for another solution, such as selling this information about vulnerability to black hat people. So black hat people can use this vulnerability to cause harm. Clear? So we have other categorization for hackers. We have also a category of hackers called script kiddie. We have also state-sponsored hackers. We also have the hacktivist. We also have insider threats and the crackers or hackers. So script kiddie are people with limited experience in hacking, and they cannot write malwares by themselves. Just to make it clear to you, when we hear the term virus, virus is a kind of malware. And what do we mean by malware? Malware is a short name for malicious software. So they removed the issues and soft, so they concatenated the malware. So malware is an expression that indicate any malicious software in general. And virus is a kind of malware. So malware is the big term, while the virus is only like a type of malware. So what do you, or from your experience, what do you think the virus is? You are great. That's great. This is a correct answer. And especially the part that is related to virus is a program. So virus is essentially a program, but instead of a program that can help user to use the computer in a smooth way, The virus is a computer that work against the interest of the computer user. So virus is a program. And we have a lot of viruses that are available online to be downloaded and can be customized by some degree of customization, and then it can be sent to users. So script kiddies are kind of people who look to or who search for pre-created viruses or pre-created security tools, and they use these tools in order to check if it work or not. So they download exploits, they download malicious codes, and they try to use it against organizations in an unstructured way. So as the name implies, they are kids. And why they are kids? Because they download scripts as it is, whether these scripts can be virus, can be security tool. Of course, they could make a precautions to make sure they will not be harmed by these tools. So they use it on special machines such as virtual machines. And virtual machines is something such as the one that I'm opening here on my screen. Can you see my screen right now? Yeah, this application is called the VMware Workstation, and this application allow you, if you are studying about Linux system, but you are running Windows, how could you install Linux on your Windows machine? You install this application first, and then you deploy or create a new virtual machine. This new virtual machine is simply a Windows inside your Windows system. So this is like an application installed on my device, and on this application I can install Linux system in case I am studying Linux and I need to play with a Linux system. I can install Linux on top of this virtual machine or on top of VMware application. If I need to play with Windows, I can install another Windows 10 machine. So whenever I want to try a new thing or play with the registry key and see what this registry key can do or the change of this registry key can do on my device. Instead of testing it on my original PC, I can test it on this virtual machine or this virtual workstation. So script kiddies can download the malicious software and try to execute it on like a virtual machine to keep their own machine secured. Okay, and what happens inside the virtual machine will stay inside the virtual machines. So if I have a virus on this virtual machine, this virus will not impact the external or the host device. My PC or my actual laptop is called here host device because it is the device that hosts this virtual machine. And in VMware Orchestration, we have an interesting feature that make isolation between the virtual machine and the host device. So I can test security tools in a safe manner and without impacting my own security or impacting my own machine. For example, guest isolation, can you see here? So I can enable guest isolation and by disabling drag and drop and copy and paste, I can totally isolate this guest machine from my own host system. But in my case, I enable the drag and drop and the copy and paste because it allows the life to go easier with me. For example, if I have like an application on my original system and I need to copy this data to this machine, I can simply copy from my Windows and then paste it on the virtual machine. So that's what do I mean with the isolation. But in case I am enabling the guest isolation, when I do a copy should not work. So as you can see here, I can do like a copy and paste, but in order to achieve more security, I can disable such feature. Anyway, script kiddie. If in case you are not familiar with VMware or VirtualBox, I suggest to have a look to it because it can give you capability or possibility to test a lot of techniques and a lot of things that is not only related to security but also for system administration. You can build a whole IT infrastructure on this machine. For example, and just for example, my device is somehow freezed. This device was freezed. In virtual machines, Does anybody, if you have like studied or was looking to study, let's say, networking, Cisco devices, firewalls, or something like this? Anybody at all? Does anybody of you know what is router, what is switch, what is a firewall, or and this sort of stuff? Yeah. So in this particular video, I'm explaining how using virtual machines you can create like whole IT infrastructure or emulated infrastructure that include routers, switches, firewalls. So as you can see here, I installed a virtual machine, and on this virtual machine, I created a virtual switch and a virtual core switch that allow me, if I am studying such something such as network security or network administration, to play with this simulated machine and do a kind of virtual lab. And in this virtual lab, I can place Windows devices, servers. So on like a laptop with 16 gigabyte of memory, for example, you can have a whole IT infrastructure that includes servers, clients, switches, Windows machines, and play with all of it, in case you are studying a certificate such as Microsoft or Linux or network, even CCNA or something like this. So virtual machines are very very useful tool, and I suggest you to consider to study or read about how to use it. Okay. So script kiddie in general, people who are downloading malicious codes and they play with it and they check if it work or not. But when it comes to writing their own virus by themselves, they don't have the capability to do such thing. That's why they are kiddie. And their attacks are usually does not target a specific industry. They are trying only to attack whatever. They read about a technique to attack systems, so they will try to apply this technique even with their family members. So they are kids at the end. State sponsored, and as the name imply, it is hacker groups that are sponsored by states. And we can see the status of state-sponsored attack in modern warfare. Before a physical attack to be done, we can have an attack to power utility, nuclear planets, by attacking their cybersecurity infrastructure to cause harm or cause outage. We have a lot of state-sponsored examples, but it is not the scope to discuss it right now. Hacktivists are different kind of attack, and hacktivist is attack groups that are promoting or that are supporting a cause or supporting a human right, for example. So they may make attack to brutal government companies or government related companies to support or to make their voice reach a wider audience. Insider threat is someone inside the organization and he has a malicious intention, could be disgruntled employee, someone who is not satisfied about the situation in the organization, so he can participate in a cyber attack or avail the way to external actors or external hackers to access the network. One of the examples of insider threat is by time our security controls are become more rigid, which means we implement firewalls, we implement antivirus, we implement a lot of security techniques, and these security techniques make it harder for hackers to attack our organizations. So hacking groups or hackers in general are promoting and making advertisement on the hacking forums and hacking websites that asking for support or help from anybody inside a particular organizations that work in financial sector, oil and gas, something like this, but not from medical institutions and so on. And they ask or give an offer that if you helped us to gain access to your organization network, we will pay you a huge sum of money. And also we will give you a commission about whatever we earn from the company that you helped us to access it. Can you imagine this? This is called as affiliate attacks. Affiliate attacks means hackers looks for some people with motive inside big name organizations, and they ask them to just place a specific USB drive in any of the organization devices, for example, or open a specific attachment in a specific mail. Make any, in other terms, deliver the malware by any mean to the organizations that they are working for. And in exchange for that, the hacking group or the hackers who will deliver the ransomware and encrypt all the organization devices will pay a money for this insider threat. And also they can pay a commission for any ransom that paid by the organization that was impacted. This is another evolving term in cybersecurity called affiliate attacks. Affiliate attacks means attacks that are sponsored by someone who is insider to the organization, who is trusted to the organization. Crackers and hackers are the same. They are the people who have the capability to attack the system and gain access to the system. And we can find the hackers working in individual form, and they can be working in groups. If you can recall, there was a group back to 2011, 2012 called Anonymous. It was a hacking group. Did you hear the term anonymous hacking group before? Yeah, they are a kind of hacktivists, and they are a group of hackers that are working in an organized way to achieve objective or achieve a goal. So hackers can work individually and also can work in group. So here we are going to discuss some of the essential terms. So simply, I believe we discussed what is a threat. Threat is any event with potential adversely impact on computer system. Risk is the possibility that threat can happen, and asset is something with economical value to the organization, and this asset participate in revenue generation, which means if I have a building, the building could be an asset. If I have a copyright or a trade secret, this could be an asset, although this is not a tangible or something that I can touch. It is not a physical asset, but it is at the end can be used in creating revenue. And for any asset owned by the organization, we can find a vulnerability that is related to this asset. For example, if I have a building, the inexistence of a security fence surrounding this building could be a vulnerability. If I have a system and this system does not have a proper patch management process that is done in continuous and inconsistent manner, this could be a vulnerability. And in case of the existence of this vulnerability, and in case we have a threat that could, for example, make use of this vulnerability. For example, if I have a virus that target this specific vulnerability, so this virus in this case will be the threat, and the vulnerability will be the way that this virus will gain access or cause impact to the asset. So to understand the relation between all of this, we have the threat actor, which could be the cracker, state-sponsored insider threat, or script kiddie, who use exploits or use viruses or use threats. And by using these threats, he will create an attack. And the goal of this attack is to exploit a vulnerability. Remember, vulnerability is a term related to asset. So if I have a building without a security controls, in this case, this could be a vulnerable building. If I have a software without patching, this could be a vulnerability in software itself. And by making this attack, the goal is to cause impact to this asset. So at the end, by successfully attacking a certain vulnerability, you will cause an exploitation for a vulnerability on asset, and at the end, you will cause an impact. Could you give me an example for what are the possible impacts that can be caused by such attack? Because the term impact is very general term. But what could be the possible impacts on system after successful attack? Theft, that's include physical threats and logical as well, right? So what kind of theft that could happen to digital asset? Steal people digital money accounts, leaking their private data or sensitive data such as their emails, their passwords, and then make these data available to be sold online. This is a possible option also. And these two type of impacts are affecting the confidentiality aspect only. What are the different kinds of impacts that could affect integrity and availability? So always put the concept of CIA in front of your eyes. When you are evaluating various threats, look at these threats from the perspective which threat affect confidentiality, which threat affect integrity, which threat affect availability, as well as when you assess the impact itself. Okay? Okay, so what could be the possible impact on the integrity? I'm just making sure all are following or keep following with us. Yeah, that's right. Attacking a bank database and reset the debt of customers, for example, increasing the debt of particular customer. So whenever we have a data destruction or data tampering or data modification, this is a possible way for playing with integrity. What about availability? That's right. So availability is making system unusable. Okay. So as you can see, vulnerability is a weakness in the system, and we will have a lot of, and we will use the term vulnerability a lot during this class. So vulnerability in general is a weakness or a flaw in system that can leave the system open to be attacked. We have a lot of types of vulnerability. Vulnerability could be a flaw in the system, and the composition of this vulnerability, a flaw in the system, attacker can access to this system, and a way that hacker can reach this system. So you can have a vulnerability inside a building, for example, that the safe is not logged for something like this. But here you have a vulnerability in this building. So this is the flaw. But this building, on the other hand, is secured with another wall or another perimeter defense. So the second factor here, which is accessing of attacker to this flow, does not exist. So this makes the vulnerability is not used or cannot be used. So whenever we think about vulnerability, we need to think about the real existence of this vulnerability. Does the hacker or attacker can reach this vulnerability? And do we have capable hackers to access this vulnerability? Vulnerability is not only a technical term, it can be hardware issue, software, network, human, physical, or organization. Can you give me an example for a vulnerability that is related to human? So user awareness, using or having users that is not aware, it is an example for human related vulnerability. Can you give me also an example for organizational vulnerability? And I really need interaction from all people who are joining the class just to make sure we will take the best. Don't be hesitated to answer, even if you are not sure about your answer, because it will help us to explain why your answer is not the good one, or it is, in fact, it is a good one. So I appreciate if you are all can participate. So can somebody give me example for organizational vulnerability, or how do you, or what do you think about organizational vulnerability? Does it make sense to you? Okay, let me give you an example for organizational vulnerability. Okay, organizational vulnerability, for example, is to have someone work in the IT operation, fine, who is responsible for batching the systems and ensuring the secure configurations is done in a proper way. Okay? At the same time, this one will work as an auditor and will go to his own secured system and make an audit to the system to ensure that proper security configurations done in a proper way. Is that a good practice? It is not a good practice. Again, I have an IT operation, IT analyst, who is responsible to make sure systems are configured in a secure way. Okay? But at the same time, this one also responsible to detect or make an audit to ensure that the IT analyst process in securing systems is done in a proper way, to report to the management in case this process is not done efficient. Is that a good practice? Why? No. That's right. That's right. You can miss things and could be not objective in your decision. The person cannot be the inputter or and authorizer at the same time. The one who approves the budget should not be the one who spends the budget. The one who develops the code should not be the same one who reviews the security of this code. Because in case of any of this happens, we could have the concept of, let me write it on the screen. We could have the situation of conflict of interest, if you are familiar with this term. Conflict of interest could happen if the one who do the security is the one who review the work of security people done properly or not. Because the one should not audit his own work, because he will not be objective. So this is an example for organizational vulnerability that cause the quality assurance process to be inefficient, because we have the same one who implements the security control is the same one who audits this configured security controls. Make sense? This is an example for organizational vulnerability. So in this case, we need to implement a control such as separation of duties. Are we familiar with the concept of separation of duties? Why do we need separation of duties? Why do we have to do so? Sorry. Yeah, to ensure, for example, certain functions cannot be done by same one. This function, for example, the one who inputs the data to system different than the one who review it for sanity. For example, I could be the one who is inputting payroll information on the system. But if there will be no one to review this data after me, I can input whatever I want. I can give my friend a higher pay rate or a higher raise. So there should be someone who inputs the data on system and other one who reviews this data for sanity. Okay? So excuse me just 1 minute, I will come back, okay?